Alright everyone, welcome to the makeup class number 2, the second of the two classes that I'm missing while I am in the Philippines. Let's see. Alright, let's get right to it. And since I had actually mistakenly skipped all of the kazes that I was intending to do in makeup class number 1, go right to the kazes book and we'll go right through it. We are again in compound meter. We're going to finish actually the lion's share of the rest of chapter 6. So please go to your kazes books into page 83 and we'll swiftly go through the examples that we need to. Alright, on page 83, let's start at 165, which is near the bottom of the page. And, okay, so remember that we are in compound meter in which the dotted half note receives the beat. So meters using this are going to look like 3/4, 6/4, 9/4, 12/4. And they will feel identical. If you were to close your eyes and just listen to them, they would feel identical to the compound meters that you already know, 3, 8, 6, 8, 9, 8, 12, 8. But let's get right into it. 165, kind of a warm-up. 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a T, 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 T. Slow as it is, it still is necessary to subdivide. All right, let's go right into 166. This comes in on a pickup, a beat 9 pickup, or on the of beat 3, one measure and we're in on it. Watch out for ties across bar lines, dynamic contrasts, etc. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and T, 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 2 and a 3. T, ticky, T, 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 ticky, T, ticky, T, 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 ticky, 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 T. Off. Turn the page to page 84, number 167. In 6/4 time with a quarter note pickup, so the of beat 2. Be really careful in the second line here. In the second line, there are some things in here. Note where they give you the accents on those figures so that the beat is not obscured. There's a really interesting concept, a really interesting feel change that they're going to be doing through beat for the second line and the beginning of the third line, so just be careful. 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2. T, 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 ticky, T, T, T. T, 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 ticky, T. T, 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 ticky, T, T, ticky, T, T, ticky, T, T. T, 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 ticky, T, T, T. And even though you probably may have noticed in the beginning of measure 5, I shorted the figure 1/4, but still, notice that it was a set of 3 quarter notes, shifted one beat to the left, shifted another beat to the left. Same thing when you had the 2 8s and 2 quarters. First on the beat, ticky, T, T, and then ticky, T, T, then ticky, T, T. Okay, they're switching that feel. All right, 168. Just going into the levels of subdivision here with dotted figures. So make sure you are subdividing and you'll be okay. 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and T, 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 T. T, T, ticky, T, T, ticky, T. Okay, and 169. counting 1 beat per measure, so keep track there. Watch out for the measured tremolo, 3 measures from the end. That 1 slash means to fill that dotted half note full of 1/8 notes. So that's the double subdivision, 1 whole measure worth, which is in 3/4 time. 1 and a 1 and a 1-y and a 1-y and a and T, 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 T. T, 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 ticky, T, ticky, T. T, 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 ticky, T, 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 ticky, 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 T. Good. Into 170. This is a bit of a longer example, and it does have an anacrusis, some pickups. This comes in on beat 2, or we start counting on beat 2 of the 6/4 bar, and we come in on the and of 2. Give you 1, 2, 1, and then we're in. Watch the dynamic contrasts. There are several of them. 1 and a 2-y and a 1 and a T, 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 T. T, T, tiki, T, T, tiki, T, 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 tiki, T, T, tiki, 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 T, tiki, 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 T, 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 tiki, T, 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 tiki, T, tiki, T, T. T, 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 ticky, T, 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 ticky, T, T, ticky, T, T, ticky, T, 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 ticky, T, 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 ticky, 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 T. T, 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 ticky, ticky, T, 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 off. All right. One's a little longer. You might want to go back and do that one again if you found yourself having a hard time getting through that. Let's go on to page 85. We'll sweep through this. This is basically just the short long. It's not exactly a Scottish snap, but it is kind of the equivalent that you can get in compound meter. All right, let's try it. 171 preparatory drill. 1 and a 2 and a T, 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 T. Okay, let's go and put it into practice in 172. Just be careful, just like the Scotch snap or the Scottish snap, the tendency is to want to place the longer of the notes on the downbeat. T, 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 which is all well and good when it's appropriate, but in this case, T, 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 which is why they put the accent on those downbeats, so you'll remember to do it. 172, 1 measure in 9/4, and we're in. 1 and a 2-y and a 3 and a T, 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 ticky, T, 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 ticky, T, ticky, T, 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 ticky, ticky, T, 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 ticky, 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 T, off. 173 and 174, dealing with kind of the long, short, dividing up the short part of that. The T, 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 or ticky, T, T. 173, ready and go, and T, 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 ticky, T, T, ticky, T, T, T. 174, we're in 1. We're in 1 here, watch out. Things happen quicker than you think. 1 and a 1 and a 1-y and a 1 and a T, 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 ticky, T, 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 ticky, 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 T, T, ticky, ticky, T. T, 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 ticky, T, T, ticky, 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 T. T T T T T T T ticky T T ticky T T T T T T T T ticky 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 T. All right. 175, a tie across, the tie across, and then of course the rest with the double subdivision upbeat, the TT. TT, 175 preparatory drill. Let's give it a try. 1 and a 2 and a and T, ticky T, ticky T. T, 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 T. T, 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 T. Good. 176, same thing in 6/4. 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a and. T, 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 ticky, ticky, T, ticky, T. T, ticky, 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 T, ticky, T, T, ticky, ticky, T, ticky, 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 T, T, ticky, 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 T. Often, as we can see in measure 5, even I can get fooled by the 6/4 time signature looking different than it really is. All right, now number 177, and this is where we will, this is the last one we will do in this one, and we'll finish up the chapter when I return. But let's try this more challenging one-part exercise, and the thing that's challenging about it is there are small rests. It's in 3/4 time, so it's a little bit quicker. Not everything comes in on downbeats as you expect. So let's go a little slower, make sure we get this nice and accurate. Okay, and watch out, don't fall for the tyranny of the downbeat. Just because you have tiki, tiki, tiki doesn't mean you have to hit the downbeat very often. They will rob you of that sense of completion on the downbeat, but it's okay. 1 and 1 and 1 and a 1 and a and. T, 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 tiki, tiki, T, T, tiki, T, T, T. T, T, tiki, 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 T, T, tiki, 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 T, T, T. Ticky, 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 T, 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 ticky, T, ticky, T, 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 ticky, 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 T, T, ticky, 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 T, ticky, ticky, T, ticky, ticky, T. All right, that's it for the Kazez for now. We will come back to the concept of hypermeter that we talked about in the previous chapter, but let's go now to the Berkowitz book. And please go to page 58. To page 58. Now you will remember that in the first makeup class we talked about going to the dominant, spending time in the dominant, usually through the agency of the syllable phi. Okay, so let's continue with that, and then we're going to talk about secondary dominants for a little bit. So let's begin on page 58 in your Berkowitz book. Page 58 and 59. Open your book up flat because you're going to need both sides to do number 253. Okay, it goes on to the other side there. Okay, and if you briefly look at this, you will see that it is in the key of D flat major, and the dominant of D flat major okay, so there's D flat major, the dominant of D flat major would be A flat, and as you can see, it's one accidental different, which in this case is phi. So the presence of phi sometimes indicates the presence of the dominant. Now this case is not so cut and dry because it happens only once in the second line, second measure, and it happens in the context of a neighbor tone. However, in this case, Berkowitz is telling you we are indeed in the dominant here. And actually the melodic motion will make you feel like you're in the dominant there, and you'll see what we're talking about here. So let's get the key of D flat major. Oh, I'm sorry, that's key D flat major. Do. Sol is our first syllable. This is in cut time. Let's do it in 4/4 though. Let's do it in 4/4. Watch out, there's a fermata near the end. We'll go ahead and take that. If we're doing this in 4/4 time, this will come in on beat 3. Sol, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2. Sol, 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 mi, re, mi, fa, sol, mi, do. Sol, 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 la, sol, mi, re, do, re. Sol, 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 mi, re, mi, fa, sol, mi, do. Sol, sol, fi, sol, la, ti, do, la, sol. La, la, re, mi, fa, sol, sol, do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do, ti, la, sol. Do, re, mi, re, do, fa, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. 1, 2. Do, re, mi, sol, mi, do, re, mi, do. So you can see there in that second line, it feels a little bit like the key of A flat major, just for a little while, and then we go right back to the key of D flat major. All right, let's try. Number 254, this is all on page 59. This one's a little tricky. There are some for the obvious reasons. Note, it's got lots of leaps in it, outlining a lot of chords, including some seventh chords, 5/7 in the first 4 notes, the first 2 beats of the first 4 measures. It's also outlining 5/7 in the dominant, which is actually a secondary dominant we're going to talk about in just a moment. And there are some interesting rhythmic things here. There's some open measures and places where we feel like we want to keep singing, but it stops. A little bit like that more difficult Kazakh exercise we just finished. So let's give this one a try. B flat major. B flat major. So, it's a little low. We'll just have to do the best we can. Pop it up an octave if you need to. Sol, ti, re, fa. That's the 5/7 chord right there. This is a Ländler, but let's just go much, much slower and give this one a try. Notice there are multiple E naturals, and that again is the syllable fi. 1 and 2 and 3 and sol, ti, re, fa, mi, re, mi, do, sol, la, do, fa, la, sol, fa, sol. Sol, fi, sol, la, re, mi, fi, sol, re, mi, fa, mi, re, la, sol, ti. 2, 3. Sol, ti, re, fa. So, re, fi, la, do. Sol, ti, re, fa, mi, re, do. It was a little tricky for me too. So you can see in the paragraph next in the Berkowitz book, it's talking about secondary dominants, and the next few melodies include secondary dominants. The first couple they're going to give us are fairly obvious to a certain extent. Actually, the most obvious secondary dominant they gave us was in the new number 254, where they weren't necessarily consciously talking about secondary dominants, because you could see a major minor seventh chord that was not diatonic to the key completely outlined. Okay, and you know, both of them, if we're talking about secondary dominants, right now we've been talking about going into the dominant, and of course phi is going to be very important because that is the leading tone to the dominant. That's the T-do to the dominant key. Okay? And that's what a secondary dominant does, is it basically takes a key center that is not the key center of the piece and tonicizes it, or makes you feel as if you are in that key for at least a certain amount of time. The easiest, the very, very best way that you can feel a key is to do 5-1, or even better, 5-7-1 in that key to establish the tonic. So the difference between just merely being in the dominant and being in a secondary dominant, I guess, is just more one of degree rather than the presence of phi or any other chromatic note. If something is outlined more obviously, or there are more notes of the chord implied, we might say that it's a secondary dominant. You can actually go back to all of the previous examples we did with the dominant, 251 all the way to 254, and make a case that there are secondary dominants, especially number 254. Make a case that there are secondary dominants outlined there. So now we're just being a little bit more obvious about it. But here's the thing. That was just the dominant, the fifth. You can use the secondary dominant, as you well know from your harmony classes. It can tonicize any scale degree. Okay, you can tonicize with the secondary dominant the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, etc. So we're going to stick here with 1 and with 4. 1 with 4, and obviously if you have questions regarding the identities and how to identify a secondary dominant chord, that's something you probably want to talk to your theory or harmony teacher about. Of course, I can talk to you about this later as well. But let's take a look at number 255. We'll just do a couple of these examples. 255, fließend. We're in the key of F major, and we're tonicizing 5, which is the key of C, And where they give you the indications there, 5-7 over 5, that's where it happens. And so you can see there is re, fi, and la, and they even give you C there, which is not part of that, but it's just another chromatic alteration. And that's the bottom part of the 5-7 chord there. All right, so let's give this one a try and see how it feels. Do, re, mi. Okay, this is going to have some kind of neighbor chromatic notes into it and some leaps. 1 and 2 and 3. Do, re, mi, sol, fa, mi, mi, re, di, re, mi, fa, la, sol, fi, sol, mi, re, fi, sol, la, si, la, fi, sol, re, ti, re, sol, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, sol, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, ti, re, sol, fa, re, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, mi, re, mi, sol, fa, re, la, sol, do. Okay, so really all that's going on with the secondary dominants, all that they're doing is they're adding the chromatic notes that we had already dealt with chromatic neighbor tones and chromatic passing tones. We're now basically adding leaps with chromatic notes that are outlining secondary dominant functions. Let's try number 256 in F minor. F minor. Let's reestablish. We're in tenor clef. Let's try this one out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Do, re, mi, do, mi, re, ti, sol, ti, re, mi, fa, mi, fa, sol. Fi, sol, le, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do, mi, re, la, ti, sol, re, do. All right, good. That's all we're going to do of that for now. Number 256 will end that portion. And now we're going to go to harmonic dictation. Harmonic dictation, and you will, let me just make a note here, you will note that we, in the makeup class number 1, we did pre-harmonic dictation 2 with 7th chords, all those inversions, and jumped the bass notes around a little. So we are almost there. We are almost ready to do SATB harmonic dictations. Of course, we're going to do the pre-twos more extensively, jumping around, doing a little bit more crazy stuff. However, we have not yet done minor mode with 7th chords. So let's talk a little bit about chords in minor mode. 7th chords in minor modes. Let's talk about qualities. Okay, 1, 7, and I'm going to use only the most commonly used. Technically, you could say, because there's a 7th scale degree, it could be raised, and you would have a minor major chord. That's just not used very often, especially in the kind of music we're talking about. So I'm just going to use the most commonly used chords here. So 1, 7, were we to use it, would be a minor 7th chord. 2, which is normally as a triad diminished, becomes half diminished as a 7th chord. 3 is a major 7th chord. I'm going to drop an octave here. 4, and again, we could raise that to make it an augmented major chord, just not done quite as much. 4, 7 would be a minor. 5, 7, of course, because of the 7th scale degree, you have 2 options. You have minor 5, 7, which is another minor, and then the dominant sounding 7, major minor. 6th scale degree, we're just going to deal with the scale on the lowered 6th. It's a major triad and a major 7th. And let me move. I'm going to have to move the camera over just a little bit so I can get into there. We have 2 options also for the 7 chord. It is major minor. It's got a dominant feel to it, and the raised is a fully diminished 7th chord, fully diminished. So we have nearly all of the chord qualities that we've used in the minor mode. Now when we do our dictation here, I'm going to leave these up so you can see them. And like in the previous class, in the previous makeup class, there are 3 of these that you're going to need to do to turn in for your attendance homework. This will be number 1. This will refer to this, of course. It's going to have, these will be comprised of 6 chords, just like the others. It will start with do in the bass, 1 in the space below, as is our normal practice, 6 chords total. So this is going to be pre-harmonic dictation 1 standards. So these are all going to be in root position. These are all going to be in root position. So get the bass note. If you have the bass note, you know the chord. Okay, then you need to determine whether the chord is a triad or a 7th chord, and then the proper symbols. And of course, accidentals will make some determinations. If you hear a sol in the bass, you know it's a 5 chord of some kind, but the question will remain, is it a minor minor 7th or a major minor 7th, or is it a triad, a minor triad, or a major triad? So you have a number of options in the minor mode. Okay, so we're going to do 3 of these again, and do our very best. Okay, and you'll turn these in as your attendance. Okay, here's number 1. All right, here we go. Ready, and. Let's start that again. I apologize. Ready, and. Okay, let's hear that one again. Ready, and. All right, that's number 1. Let's try number 2. It's going to start off the same way. And we'll have a different set of chords. Let's try this out. Ready, and. All right, again, ready, and. And number 3. Same chord, number of chords, starting the same way. Here we go. Ready, and. Let's hear that again. Ready, and. Okay, so next time I see you, I should be back in the country, and I will collect number 1, 2, and 3 from the first makeup class and the second makeup class as your attendance for those, and we'll keep right on going, and very soon now, very soon, We're going to kind of consolidate all this together. We're going to try out full SATB harmonic dictation, and I think this will have prepared you very well for it. Okay, we'll see you guys later.